Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to be here today, and I have to tell you, I have spoken many places, but speaking after the people who spoke today is an intimidating thing. It just is. So I have remarks here, which I'm going to start with in a moment, but I just want to tie it in with what you have heard this morning, which I didn't know would be shared. Part of what you're going to hear this morning is about the task force, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. But one of those things is that child trafficking specifically, and I actually mentioned this, this is a little aside, you can Google it. I testified in the House of Representatives, their Judiciary Committee on September 13th. Google, I don't remember what it is, but just find it on there. You can find the remarks with all these statistics in here. But in 2021, there were 21 million reports of online child sexual abuse that were received by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is NCMEC. It's our big governing house here in the United States. Their tip line received over 29 million reports, of which 93.5% were resolved to locations outside the US. And I want to tie it into what the two gentlemen spoke about today, because this absolutely ties into trafficking here in the United States and abroad. And I want to kind of bring it all together before I dive into the rest of this. The Finnish human rights group Protect Children recently published the largest survey ever on the thoughts and behavior of people who consume child sexual abuse material, that's called CSAM, online. And it found that 42% of respondents said that after viewing CSAM online, that they sought direct contact with children. And 58% reported fearing that the viewing of CSAM might lead them to sexually abuse children in person. I also want to tell you that most trafficking now that is advertised, and especially in Germany, Germany really is the epicenter of this, is actually people being advertised online, children being advertised online. That is a form of trafficking, and it's probably the most prevalent in the world right now. Lots of statistics on that. I don't have time to dive into it today, but it is an epidemic. It is rapidly changing. COVID changed everything. And so what you're going to hear me share right now, I just want you to know this is everything I'm reading is from a statement that we actually released through the task force last November. So last November, all that I'm reading right now is actually from that. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm so grateful to the Foundation United, truly, and to Elizabeth for its top-down effort to really enlist and ignite global leaders. And of course, you've heard that. They train healthcare workers, they educate students and teachers, they train police officers, and they awaken faith communities, tying it all together. But in order to bring about systemic change in the battle against human trafficking, that change has to become the law of the land. As the founder of the Interparliamentary Task Force on Human Trafficking, it is my privilege to chair a multinational leadership group that focuses on stopping human trafficking through legislative action worldwide. Because human trafficking and modern slavery is a borderless crime, and I hope that's what you hear. And the laws and policies of one nation greatly impact others. Human trafficking, just to put it in perspective, it impacts nearly 50 million people globally. A quarter of them are children. It includes sex trafficking, labor exploitation, organ harvesting, forced marriage, orphanage trafficking, which is very deeply rooted actually in churches as well. Don't have time to dive into that today, but it's one thing that we are tackling head on through the task force, and other forms of modern slavery. More than 99.5%, and remember this, of those who are forced into slavery are never identified. Actually, it's 0.4%. 0.4%. We're here near the southern border of the United States today. I actually lived here in Tucson as a teen. My dad, just on a personal note, was the head of the FBI. I saw firsthand that human trafficking is big business, and it is unlike any other human rights abuse because it is a transnational, organized crime, and it is actually the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. It generates more than $150 billion annually, and it funds every single nation and movement that is currently threatening the stability and the security of our world today, every single one. And I don't care if it's Russia, China, North Korea, the Taliban, you name it, they actually use slavery specifically to fund their operations. However, unlike drugs or weapons, trafficking, a person can be sold over and over again. So I formed the task force just two years ago, very much organically, and it is the first consortium of its kind to inform, educate, and ignite global leaders. It includes legislators, government leaders, and lived experience experts, and we address the root cause of human trafficking by focusing on actionable policies that create systemic change in governments. Because let me tell you, not everything that comes out of Congress is bad. There are a lot of good things, and a lot of good things we're trying to get through. One of the most critical gaps in the fight against human trafficking is the cultivation of legislators who are dedicated to championing anti-trafficking laws and policies. I know this to be the core of the core. William Wilberforce, who many of you here know, his name is synonymous with the 18th century abolition movement, and it put an end, of course, to the transatlantic slave crisis. But at its tipping point, it was an abolition movement that was a parliamentary campaign. At the task force, we have 4 primary methods for accomplishing our mission. We have quarterly virtual convenings. We have topical working groups. They're focused on a specific element. Like I said, our one right now is orphanage trafficking. We have in-person forums, events, and policy dinners, and we have targeted campaigns and statements. And I'll end with this. When I worked at the Department of Justice, I saw a consistent cycle of rescue, restore, repeat for survivors of human trafficking, and I wanted it to stop. And we don't use that term a lot now, rescue, but I'm telling you, I remember sitting there saying to someone, this has got to stop. I met with survivors and said, it's just a never-ending cycle. And I saw that there were plenty of people who wanted to be, quote, involved in the rescue part of it, but not enough who truly wanted to stop human trafficking from occurring in the first place. We had a lot of people who just, and with all due respect, just wanted to be the hero and come in and rescue. And I said, I don't want this to happen in the first place. I'm sitting here with survivors, and I don't want them to have to be survivors for the rest of their lives. I wanted to stop playing whack-a-mole. And laws and policies do not produce an adrenaline rush. They don't. But I talk to survivors frequently who tell me the incredible impact that laws have made in truly setting them free, not just from their trafficker, but so they can become economically free, to have a career and thrive in life and not just merely survive. Good laws provide restorative justice, freedom, and they usher in healing. So with the task force, the Foundation United supports efforts to stop voluntourism in orphanages and trafficking of children in them, and transforms legislators from supporters of anti-trafficking efforts to leaders within their nation. They have a grasp of what it takes to ignite global leaders in the struggle against trafficking, exploitation, and abuse. This effort is unlike anything that has done before, and it fills a critical gap in the space by strengthening the laws of nations to dismantle and stop this crime at the root. I am honored to join the Foundation United in this quest, and this weekend I hope that you will be too. Now please turn your attention to the video screen for a compelling story from my friend and dear colleague, Roshana Voss.